Hello and welcome to the vlog. I've stayed in this absolutely idyllic location for a few days now, but the time has come to move on. I'm not going far today, it's only about 4 miles, but it is going to be a taxing 4 miles. First of all, I have to go through the Bronston Tunnel, which has all the usual terrifying aspects of a tunnel, but in addition, it's sort of S-shaped. It's got kinks in it, which means that you just can't quite see where you're going, whether other boats are coming towards you. Just not looking forward to that at all. Then I've got 6 wide locks to go, I think it's down, and then finally, in the busy throng that is Braunston, I need to try and moor up at the water point to refill my tank, and whether that's going to be feasible, I have no idea. So anyway, let's get started. It is suggested in various places that turning on your cabin lights and opening the curtains will help to illuminate the sides of the tunnel as you pass. So that done, I set off. The tunnel is really only a few minutes away, so a chance to breathe some fresh air and take one last lingering look at the great outdoors before diving into the horrid blackness of the tunnel. Another boat ahead of me, so I'd need to keep a respectable distance between us, not wishing to pick up any muck thrown up by his propeller. I do wish the Canal and River Trust would have a chance to do a bit more vegetation management sometimes. This kind of tree growth in the middle of the canal is most annoying. I know they're limited on budget, but some stuff needs to be done. Some early morning traffic that's just come through the tunnel. That implies all's flowing well, at least. Now look here. What's that I spy in the distance? That little pitch-black semicircle of horror? That'll be Bronston Tunnel then. And another boat coming through this way, if I'm not much mistaken. Yep, here it is, emerging into the light. Once more, unto the breach, dear friends, once more. I see you stand like narrowboats on the slips, straining upon the start. The game's afoot. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge, cry God for Braunston, England, and St. Christopher. He being the patron saint of travellers, of course. Quick status report having come through the tunnel. 3 boats passed, 3 boats bashed. The first one I think their fault, the second one very definitely my fault, let the front swing out a bit, and the third one was just a minor bump, so actually could have been a lot worse, and it's lovely to be out in the open again. Now, just onward to those 6 locks. Luckily, these being wide locks, the boat ahead of me in the tunnel joined me in the descent, which makes things a lot easier, neither boat being then able to sway about in the lock as the water rushes and swirls. It's good exercise this, you know. A lock gate weighs several tons and is a beast to start moving. Pushing with the buttocks is the traditional style. With the back gate closed, rush to the front and begin to wind the paddles which open the sluices to let the water out, bringing the boat down. A boater coming the other way was happy to help as it speeds his progress. So back to the boat while he opens the gates and then out to the next lock in sequence. Here's 2 more coming up. That's good, it leaves the lock set for us to go down. In the middle of it all, this excellent pub which many recommend, including myself. Here's me doing a lock in super quick time. Notice the use of the centre line taken ashore with me to keep control of the boat in the lock and make sure it doesn't float backwards and get stuck on the lock sill. Once down, close the paddles, this is vital, open the gates and steer the boat out. Here's a novelty, to me at least, my first spot of a wide beam craft. These tend to be anything from 9 to 12 feet wide, and they can't navigate the canals in the centre of the country because the locks there are only built for narrowboats, but they are spacious to live on. Approaching another lock, and this GRP has kindly moored on the lock landing for no apparent reason, which is unhelpful. I squeezed in and leapt off only to slip on the mud, leaving me dirty and annoyed. Trousers, jacket, arm, all filthy. But there's worse to come in a moment. For now I've made it to Braunston itself, a mix of hire boats, chandleries, boat builders, moored craft. It's a right cornucopia of boatery. Time to stop briefly on the water point, the boat held temporarily with just a centre line. Hose out, it gets plugged into this Canal and River Trust tap with a screw-on connector. You need a CRT key to open these water points, it's something to do with vandalism. Hose to the boat, water on, and soon after the tank was refilled. But disaster, as I fell in the canal, having stepped back off the bow, only to find the boat had drifted out by a couple of feet on that wretched centreline, so I just went straight down. Bit shocked, but hauled myself out, got dry, and moved the boat a grand total of 50 yards or so up the bank to a 48-hour mooring spot. A nice cup of tea beckoned. Later on, the afternoon still young, a wander round the Stop House, built in 1796 as a place to collect tolls and keep track of which boats were passing. Now it's a Canal and River Trust office with a handful of canal exhibits on display, along with leaflets about local places to visit. I rather liked this ancient chart of distances from point to point on the canal. Just outside is the famous cafe boat, the Gongoozler's Rest, a gongoozler being slang for someone who likes to visit the canals but doesn't actually do any boating. I had a slice of lemon drizzle cake for £2, and it was decent enough. Next up is Bronston Marina, where boats are moored and brokered for sale. I came here once while looking to buy, but nothing took my fancy. They've got this rather splendid crane, no idea if it's actually used. Incidentally, should you visit Braunston, there's an Elsan point and extra water point about 200 yards further along the bank, which came in handy just before I left. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because I wandered into Bronston village while I had the time. It's a pretty traditional, quaint English type of place. Here's the church, for example. This appears to be a house, but I have a very childish mind, and it just looked a bit rude. Proper village stuff here, with a community cafe, post office come general stores, and a traditional butcher where all those merry little lambs I've seen in the fields on my travels come to be chopped up. Back to the boat via a little wooded park, allotments alongside, and more on them in a future video. Braunston is historic not just generally, but especially in canal terms, and this is marked with a plaque next to the pump house. I popped into the Chandler's and bought a second centre line so I'd have one each side of the boat. It just makes things easier, not having to fling one line over the solar panels. Finally, a chance to sit back and watch the lambs playing chase. Oh, little lambs, you know not what fate awaits you.